All right, everybody, welcome to it's the John Fiala episode number 57 of the Still City Insider podcast. Jim, you all right with that? No? Not
No, it's the Kieran Fox episode.
Okay, Kieran Fox. So it's the John Fiala versus Kieran Fox episode 57, Still City Insider podcast. I'm Jeremy Hritz alongside Mr. Jim Wexell. We got our gallery view back up here. We didn't have that set up last week, but super excited to have you back. Jim, how is your week been going?
Oh, this week's been going great. I'm home.
That's great. How was the steak? How was the steak?
Oh, the steak was undercooked.
Yeah.
I mean, the price was right. But undercooked by St. Elmo standards is still, it got to the cooked portion. I ordered medium, and it was medium rare. And some of the guys were a little jealous, and I was like, But anyway, the last couple bites were fantastic. The shrimp cocktail's fantastic. I survived the tornado driving there, but driving home, I got into Noah's Ark. It's 4 straight hours of torrential downpour. So getting there and back was not, with the climate change happening, it's no longer snow and wind in Indianapolis in February. It's tornadoes and rain.
Tornadoes and rain.
It's getting warmer. So, I don't know which is worse.
Sounds like a heck of a combination.
It sounds like I'm doing a lot of complaining too.
A little bit.
I'm really feeling good. This is a great week. I'm going to Canton tomorrow to research more. We've got some, I worked hard at the combine. We have some writers. We have some guys, Roy Countryman, Shane Hallam, Matt Steele. They're all busy pumping stuff out. We had an answer man about 10 days ago. So I'm in the middle of all this work coming in, and I'm going to Canton. I got 3 books on my mind, and it's just all research right now. This is doing the heavy lifting, and I love that.
That's
Sitting
awesome.
in the basement of the Pro Football Hall of Fame with books all around me. I mean, I know it's weird, but that's what I do.
I just see you just lit up.
I know it's March, and I love it because I don't really have to go to work. And I got other people, I'll get up early and post other people's stories. And I did all my work last week, survived the tornado, survived the flood. I'm feeling good. Yeah, I'm feeling good. This Kieran Fox episode's really got me fired up.
All right. Well, hey, I'm feeling good that you're feeling good. And you should be feeling good out there in the audience today. We've got a great show for you today. A lot of things that we're going to talk about. If you remember from last week, Jim was at the combine. So I'm sure he's going to report back to us a little bit from there. But we're also going to talk about the potential of Bud Dupree maybe returning to your Pittsburgh Steelers. We'll talk a bit more about that number 17 pick in the first round. Is it going to be cornerback? Is it going to be offensive lineman? If you look at who the Steelers talk to in terms of their interviews out at the combine, it's probably going to be one of those positions. So we'll get into that. And I think Jim has a player that he's enamored with some of his tape watching that he's going to get into. And then, Jim, before we close out today, I also want to get into, and we'll save this for the end, the possibility of the Steelers dealing that first pick in the second round, because Omar Khan did say that that's going to be a tasty pick that some people are going to be calling them about it. I'm not saying they're going to do it, but just want to get your insight and if it's a possibility for them to trade that pick.
Let me just say this. You guys not just you guys Omar Khan said this stuff. It was all cliche coach speak stuff. The only thing that he said, that took me back a little bit was he said we'll draft the Hall of Famer. I said, what if it's a Hall of Fame running back? And he said no.
Yeah.
So he admitted that they're not actually going to draft Hall of Famers. A position in need means something. This trading, we might trade up, we might trade down. That's what they say. That's how they answer. Stop. We're analyzing this stuff.
Hey, that's what makes it fun.
No, it's not fun. It's stupid. Let's get to the meat. Let's get to the good stuff.
All right. Well, here.
What was the good stuff? Well, I don't know if we have any good stuff. But go ahead.
So here's the good stuff. So we do have to start here. So it's episode 57. You mentioned Kieran Fox. I mentioned John Fiala. You have any nuggets on those guys as the insider, as the?
Absolutely not.
No.
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 John Fiala was Man, I remember. I'm glad you mentioned his name because I was trying to think of who back in 2000. There was a who messed up the 2001 AFC Championship game? Was it John Fiala? Did he get a? I don't
That
know.
was Cordell Stewart.
Well, they had so many special teams fiascos, and I think John Fiala was a special teams captain. Maybe that's why.
Yeah. That was
Okay, so it's the John Fiala episode, a special teams debacle ready to happen for the viewers. So pay attention.
All right, there we go. So while we're not starting with special teams, a few years ago, Bud Dupree left the Steelers. He signed a deal with the Titans. He got his money. He got paid. He was injured there. But now it's being reported he's expected to be released, and somewhat perfect timing because the Steelers don't really have true depth there behind TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith. What are the chances of this reunion potentially happening, Jim? And do you think that Dupree would be willing to take a backup spot? And would he take a maybe less than delicious contract to return to the city that drafted him?
I thought all of the answers to that were no, no, and no, and it was absurdity. And I felt it was such an absurdity that I cut it out of Matt Steele's column back in January. Therefore, it's going to happen, right? Jim cuts it out of the guy's story, writes him and says, what are you doing? It's not going to happen. Why would Bud Dupree want to come here and know he's the backup?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they really like Alex Highsmith, and with good reason. I read somebody say that, well, Alex couldn't play without TJ. Didn't he have wasn't he leading the NFL in sacks without TJ?
He was.
Man, his run defense was really good. I'm sure they're going to extend him. I mean, Bud would know he is just not going to play much except whatever rotational basis. No. All that said, since I came down so hard on Mr. Steele and he took it so well, he's a polite young man. It's going to happen, and I'm going to have egg on my face, right? Right? That's how things work. So
yeah.
That's why I think he will sign to make me look bad.
I mean, I don't think. I mean, I understand he's probably not going to get as much playing time as he would want, but the edge position anymore, you got to keep guys fresh. And as important as they are on this defense, I think they could have a nice little trio there, and maybe Austin could design some packages to get all three of them on the field if he were to come back.
Yeah, and Bud, I think they used to use Bud in a three. TJ he plays up the middle too, so there have been some 3 OLB packages, yeah. And I don't know how hurt Bud is. I don't know where he stands physically. That'll be significant. I don't know if he made enough money in Tennessee to be happy with taking second team money. It's possible. And, Bud was a little outspoken when he was here, but he's probably grown up since then. He was always outspoken in a kind way, which meant he wasn't using his head, really, with some of the things he said. But he always was good-hearted, I felt.
Yeah.
And he didn't get along with James Harrison too well when Harrison got jettisoned.
Interesting.
Well, he had some things to say about Harrison, and Harrison, it didn't. I haven't asked Harrison, and Bud's gone, so I didn't ask him. But it just seemed that Harrison probably did not treat that situation well. Any of the linebackers, outside linebackers.
Yeah.
I mean, he was falling asleep in meetings. Pretty much got kicked off the team at the end of his career. And, that's why they don't re-sign starters to put him on the bench. They traditionally haven't done that. They did it with Jerome Bettis, and it worked. So then they did it with James Harrison. Didn't work.
Right.
It was just too good. TJ proved he was too good.
Yeah.
And so, So Bud could sign, and hey, I don't know. It's possible. Though, like I said, you just know. You just have a feeling when especially I cut it. I don't usually cut it out. I usually reword it so that it's just in case we don't look bad when it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
I just cut it out. I said, Matt, that's not going to happen. What are you doing? And Matt's like, oh, well. Ever since then, I've been looking at it like, maybe.
Oh, yeah. Well, we'll have to keep an eye on that scenario to see how that plays out.
Well, let me add this, Jeremy.
Yep.
This is a great deep draft for outside linebackers. I
And
mean,
now,
they could get their they could get their number 3 in the draft.
so that's what I wanted to hit on here real fast. So, you look at a lot of the mock drafts that are happening right now with writers. You're seeing edge being mocked to the Steelers, probably around that third round pick. Do you see that as a possibility? Round 2, round 3? I mean, obviously later in the draft, I could see them making a move like that. I don't know if it's as important, that depth, to be drafted that early, but what's your take being that it is such a deep draft for outside?
I'd rather they sign a guy like Bud Dupree. That's a joke. Come on.
You got to make it.
Seriously, I'd rather see them fill that hole and not have to be forced, pigeonholed to draft an OLB.
Yeah.
You know, if you see some value that you just can't pass in the 3rd round and you want to make him your 4 guy, okay. Yeah. Otherwise, I'd hate to see him have to go in with another need.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would agree with you. If you can resign a guy like Dupree, it takes, and I know that they don't draft for need, right? That's what they say, but it does take a need off of
draft for need.
Right. But you don't have to burn that pick there. And I think you could still get something out of Bud. Speaking of the draft, Combine wrapped up last week. Interested just to hear your thoughts on the performances, individual performances of some of the prospects out there. But really, I think we have it narrowed down, and I think we did this last week too. It's either going to be cornerback or offensive lineman. If you look at the number of players that they interviewed at the Combine at those positions, there was no other position where they've talked to so many players. Do you get a sense now?
Also, let me say this.
Mm-hmm.
The guys who made it their mission to go around asking if they met with Mike Tomlin, had no other questions to ask about football, just bothered the entire mob surrounding the players who wanted to talk about football. Because when you say, did you talk to the Steelers? Then did you talk to the Falcons? Did you talk to Tampa Bay? And we got to sit there and listen to all this. Everybody talks to everybody. The reason we have more offensive linemen and corners listed on those lists is because that's what the guys see as needs. They didn't go ask the quarterbacks.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't go ask the running backs. So those lists are ridiculous. They meet with everybody. If they meet with them at the Senior Bowl, they meet with them. If you know that the Steelers might be interested in them, there's a reason that the Steelers are interested in them, because they need the position. Yeah. Okay. Right. Can I get that? I'm done with that rant. I'm doing a lot of ranting.
You're full of rants today.
I was going to come in and I ranted and talked too fast last time. I was going to slow it down and show you how much I've matured since I drove through a tornado.
It's on full display here today.
I just hate that if you talk to the Steelers, and these guys are wearing Steelers gear. You don't wear Steelers gear and pretend you're a reporter.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh man.
I try to help the guys I know. I don't know some of these guys. I'm not going to tell them what to do, but don't wear your Steeler hoodie and go to and pretend you're a reporter.
Hey, I don't have my Steelers gear on anymore. You treat me right.
I told you.
I'm objective. I'm not even a fan anymore. I just watch and just.
I give my Steelers gear to my next door neighbors and stuff, or I regift. They send us a polo shirt of what the coaches will be wearing in the fall. They send them to us in the media in the spring. And I regift. I give for Christmas presents, and people are so happy. My dad, he's got like 5 of them,
So you just gave away your secret now. Everybody's going to know at the holiday time. Oh, here comes that.
Nobody watches our podcast, Jeremy.
What do you mean nobody watches our podcast? I think we're up to like 200 people.
All right, I think any of the 12 of the 200 left who are tired of me ranting, I think I've calmed down. I think I'm okay. We can proceed.
All right, so let's talk cornerback, offensive linemen, and some of the prospects from the Combine. Joey Porter Jr., obviously, we spent some time talking about him, cornerback out of Penn State, who is on the Steelers' radar for obvious reasons, but also because he's one hell of a cornerback. Peter Skoronski, the tackle out of Northwestern, Broderick Jones from Georgia. Talk about some of the players, their performances at the Combine. And I know you talked about watching some film on a player. Let's kind of get your take here, where you're leaning at first round.
Porter Jr. is not being looked at because he's the son of Porter Sr.
Right.
he can play. Tomlin loves the pedigree, and with good reason. All NFL coaches like the pedigree because these guys are going to not be overwhelmed by the situation. Joey Porter Jr. has been practicing with the Steelers. He's covered AB. He's not going to be nervous coming out and covering Deontay Johnson at practice. Pedigree means a lot, but it's not the end all. It's not the reason that we as writers are writing about it. The kid can play. He's ranked 12th by Daniel Jeremiah. The Steelers are picking 17th.
Yeah.
He ran a 4.46. That's not 4.3, but it's not 4.5. It could fall to 17, but I don't know that it will. And he fits what they want to do with the press man. They want to play more press man. They're not the zone team they used to be. They're not the cover 3 team they used to be under Dick LeBeau. He's perfect for them. And played at Penn State. They barely threw on him in the second half of the season. So much to like about him. He's really sweet. He's not like his dad at all.
Wow.
His dad would have grimaced and glared at us the whole time. He said he got a smile from his mom. He said it's a good mix. I got my ferocity from my dad and I got my smile from my mom. And he used that smile a lot.
Yeah.
Sweet kid. You don't want him too sweet though. All the choir boys should be in church on Sunday, right?
Mm-hmm.
Out on the football field, especially on defense. But I like him a lot. I don't know that he's going to last to pick 17. Christian Gonzalez strikes me as the number 1 guy. Witherspoon didn't test. He's more of a zone guy, but he is really smooth too. I don't know if the Steelers would take him like they would Porter because of style. They want that press man. And Porter really, that's what he played at Penn State. So that covers your corners. I like Cam Smith. He talked about some past incidents that the Patriots grilled him on that has some people concerned. I like the fact that he brought it up to the media. He seems to want to be honest about whatever it is. So it can't be too bad.
Yeah.
He seemed very serious. And Jalen Hyatt, did I got that right? Is it Hyatt or Wyatt? From Tennessee, the receiver, called him the best corner he went up against. I like Cam Smith, but there's a guy that you might get at 32. And the cornerback crop is so deep, that you may be better off going offensive line then. Now, offensive line. Do they need an offensive line? I don't think they don't have a spot open. Like in 2002, I predicted they would take Kendall Simmons because the right guard position was open. Tilsky left in free agency. There is no open spot. There are some people who maybe disappoint others, but the line did play well as the season went on. And Dan Moore isn't as reviled by the team as he is by the fan base for whatever reason. Dan did give up the most sacks last year, but he also played left tackle, and that's going against the best guy usually.
Yeah.
So I don't know that they're ready to replace Dan Moore as he heads into his 3rd year unless they bring in a guy who just kills him, and then they would make the move. But I don't know that Trent Scott is their first backup tackle. J.C. Hassenauer is their first backup interior guy. No, I mean, I want those guys as my number 4 tackle and my, my number 9 or 10 OL.
Yeah.
They need a number 6 guy. And if you can get Skoronski, who can probably play center too, a guy who could back up 5 positions, and then whatever that injury happens, boom, that's where Skoronski goes.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're not going to get Skoronski. There's more pedigree. Grandson of Bob Skoronski. Everybody knows all the great Hall of Famers for the Green Bay Packers. Who knows? We don't know their left tackle through the 5 championships that Lombardi won. Left tackle is a kind of important position, no matter if Bart Starr gets rid of the ball quickly or not. Bob Skoronski was their left tackle, Peter's grandfather. So you got a Polish kid out of Chicago. His grandpa played for Lombardi. Yeah, there's some pedigree there. Pedigree matters.
Dropping knowledge.
We're looking at Peter Skoronski because of his grandpa.
Dropping knowledge.
I didn't mean to say we. I mean the royal we. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
In celebration of the Big Lebowski quarter century being released yesterday. The royal we. So I'm rambling on now. Anyway, I'm getting to my point about the offensive lineman.
Hmm?
Now, I watch Paris Johnson tape. They're not going to get him. If they get a chance to get him, wow,
Mm-hmm.
that guy's a stud. Broderick Jones, I was very disappointed in him.
Mm-hmm.
I think the number 3 tackle is Darnell Wright. And I saw Jim Nagy was raving about him today on Twitter. I quote tweeted him saying, I predicted Darnell Wright's going to be the pick at 17. The right tackle for Tennessee has some guard in his past, and I believe he could play either guard spot and right tackle. Could he play left tackle? I don't know. Trent Scott has some experience at left tackle. He might be the first sub, but if that injury happens right away, if Dan Moore gets hurt, or if Darnell Wright beats him out badly, obviously and clearly in training camp, then Darnell Wright can play left tackle. But right now, that might be a stretch because Darnell Wright, and that's why Darnell Wright's going to last till pick 17, because he's a right tackle. People don't think that's as important as left tackle.
Yeah.
I just like, he's a big man, played at Tennessee, had great games against great players, Alabama's pass rusher, really played well at the Senior Bowl, but he's just a forgotten cause because he's a right tackle.
Yeah.
I'll take that dude. Where was Searcy picked? Like 11th? He was a right tackle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He was the 11th pick.
Yeah.
Just a massive man. And hey, teams run to the right. They're right-handed. Power football to the right. And get that road grader over there. And I think he can pass block. He's got great feet. Played at Tennessee. Could play guard. They're not going to let Chuk stand in the way. They're not going to let Trent Scott. They're not going to say, oh, I don't know what other position they need right away. And I assume they're going to sign a safety back. They're going to sign they have Levi Wallace. They better get Cam Sutton.
Have to.
Otherwise, there's going to be an opening at those positions. But otherwise, there's no openings anywhere. People are screaming they need a wide receiver because of the depth, because the 4th-round rookie is not good enough to be the number 3. Anthony Miller might not be good enough to be number 4. But
what about inside backer, Jim? Because
6 offensive linemen.
Inside backer, I mean, you do have Miles Jack returning, but Devin Bush's spot's vacated unless you think Mark Robinson's going to be able to step in year 2.
What's wrong with Spillane?
Oh, well, we know what Spillane is.
Spillane's their number 1 guy. I got news for you.
Geez.
Well, hey, I hope Robert Spillane isn't one of the 12 people watching this podcast. He's an angry dude.
He's an angry dude. No disrespect. I'm just saying he's a depth player. He's a nice depth player. He could fill in if there's an injury, but in terms of what they're looking for at that inside position, somebody physical who could stop the run. Yeah, he's physical on occasion, but he's not consistent. Now, I hope that's not their plan to go in with him as their starter. Oh,
he's
man.
number 1. If Miles Jack clears his medicals, then fine. I don't know what's going on with Miles Jack and his medicals. He seems to be deteriorating physically.
Mm-hmm.
Not great, because he was on course for 150 tackles.
Yeah.
And then he tore a groin. So who knows? I like him personally, and I think he'll get better as he gets to know the system. But you know what they need? I loved Jack Campbell's interview. He was a cross between Jack Nicholson and Jack Lambert. And his name's Jack. So I was watching tape last night. There's no rookie inside linebacker going to come in and help. Trust me. So they need that. That's where they need the free agent. The free agent crop is deep at ILB.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they're going to do. I really don't see Drew Sanders. I don't see. You know who I see? Trenton Simpson, the guy who was at the combine. He kept going on about his favorite job as an inside linebacker is spying quarterbacks. I'm like, oh God, this guy has no instincts at all for stuff in Fuzzy. And I watch tape and the instincts aren't there. But you know what? He's a run and hit guy, and Tomlin always has a run and hit guy. His first draft pick was a run and hit guy, Lawrence Timmons. And then Shazier and Devin Bush. They want speed at the MAC at one of those spots. Spillane will call plays and be the physical buck guy, or Miles Jack. But I think a guy like Trenton Simpson fits Tomlin's style and might be their pick at 32.
Okay.
Even if they bring in a free agent, and Trenton Simpson's not going to be ready to play right away, just like Lawrence Timmons wasn't ready to play right away. But I'm looking at Darnell Wright and then Trenton Simpson and then maybe a corner with the second round pick.
Okay. What about and we did talk a little bit about David Long, the inside backer,
Yeah.
WVU. I know
Yeah.
that he's there's possibility there. And the brothers Edmonds, the Steelers love the brothers, right? Is it Tremaine Edmonds?
Yeah, they're not going to have the money for him.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they got to bring Terrell Edmonds back. They've got to bring Cam Sutton back. Who's the other guy they have to bring back? Well, they're going to have to bring in an ILB.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. That's a little rich, especially when there's guys like David Long out there, like you mentioned.
Right. So the player that you were watching film on, let's talk about that.
Darnell Wright.
Oh, there's okay. So it is Darnell Wright. Okay.
I already let that slip. I'm not good at building up on podcasts.
I was gonna say, I was waiting.
If I was writing a column, I'd have done that a lot better.
So Darnell Wright right now is the number 17 for your Pittsburgh Steelers.
I think it's, if Peasy falls, Peasy or Darnell Wright. But you know what? Sometimes you just got to go planet theory. You know what the planet theory is? The
biggest dude that's out there, right?
There are only so many men that size on the planet.
Yeah.
Get one.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, that's a good theory. Couple more things just want to hit on. I know we're going a bit long here today, but Jordan Addison did not have a great performance at the combine. How much did that hurt his draft stock? Did he fall out of the first round?
To me, it did. Hey, other people might like him. The only reason I was jacked up about him is because Kenny Pickett promised he'd run in the 4.3s and maybe 4.2.
4.54, 4.55 was it?
5.5, and he's 173 pounds.
Yeah.
So a lot of times those guys, see, that's what I think Peasy Jr. did. I think he lost a lot of weight and didn't do anything else, didn't do the lifting because he's going to gain weight back with his 40 time down. He's going to gain weight back and he's going to do the bench press at the pro day.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of people do that. So if you got your weight down to 173 and you're only still in the 4.5s.
Yeah.
No way.
So second round for him, third round.
I don't care.
I don't care.
He's not coming here. I mean, Anthony Miller looked good at camp last year too. And I'm sure they like Miles Boykin's gunner work as a punt coverage guy. And I know they like Cody White. 4 years now, he's been in the pipeline. They're going to use him as the number 6 guy. I don't see them drafting a receiver, maybe if some value late in the draft, but I don't see it.
Yeah. Okay. So two final questions I wanted to get to, and I alluded to them. Well, I didn't allude to them. I just said them right at the start of the show. What are the we know the Steelers never trade back and stockpile picks. That's not going to happen. There's really no precedent for that. However, they have moved up in the first round before. Look at Troy, Devin Bush most recently. So if they're going to make any type of move in the first round, it will probably be up. Do you see that as a possibility to get their guy? Let's say that Porter Jr. is their guy. They'll trade up for him. And then also, I mentioned about Omar Khan talking about that first pick in the second round, that's going to be a coveted pick. What are the chances that somebody offers just a gluttony of riches for that second round pick?
Of course.
Talk to me about that.
Well, more picks are good. That's all I can say. What else you want me to say?
More is good.
I mean, gluttony of riches said it all. I don't know why that's a coveted pick. Why? Why is that a coveted pick?
He said it was a coveted pick. Well, he didn't say it was a coveted pick, but he said that, I forget what his terminology was, but it made it sound like he's going to be receiving a boatload of calls about the second round.
And they have a history of trading down. Casey Hampton was a trade down. I can't think of another one that high up, but they've done both, trade up, trade down. I see them sticking at 17 because I think Darnell Wright's another guy. I mean, they'll probably have 3 or 4 guys, and if they're down to that 4th guy, that's when they would trade up. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Peasy Jr. isn't going to be their only guy they want.
Yeah.
Especially in a deep, deep cornerback draft. But I see an offensive lineman being a guy they like.
Yeah.
I really wouldn't mind going with Darnell Wright in the first and John Michael Schmitz with pick 32, or maybe Joe Tippmann. This franchise has never gone wrong with a Wisconsin center.
Yeah. Well, that was evident and on the clock. I really love the centerpieces of the text.
Did we talk about my book On the Clock?
Uh,
I know we only have 9 viewers left, but they tell the story about Mike Webster weighing 218 pounds. And then they had George Perlis, Woody Woodenhofer, Dan Radakovich played against Webster. Did I talk about this the last podcast?
we didn't talk about center, no.
Or Mike Webster. But anyway, they had a lot of assistant coaches that had dealings with the Big Ten, and they knew about Webster. They knew a great leverage that he had, and in spite of being at 218. And, they passed that film around, especially from the Senior Bowl, because Dan Radakovich went to the Senior Bowl. He was just hired to be the offensive line coach. And he said, Bad Rad, go to the Senior Bowl. And Bad Rad went with the intention of watching Mike Webster.
Mm-hmm.
And he came back raving about him. They had tape of the Senior Bowl. He just kicked some butt on his middle linebacker from Tennessee State. Killed him. And they passed that tape around like it was the Stallworth tape, like the Don Hudson tape, as we talked about in On the Clock.
Yeah.
And everybody loved it. And Chuck's like, well, I mean, when do we take this guy? And they're like, take it easy, Chuck. He's 218 pounds. We can wait on this guy. Well, the Bears took that inside linebacker he kicked butt on. They took him with the 4th pick of the draft. And Bad Rad said, I don't know what the Bears were drinking watching that Senior Bowl tape, because he was watching Webster kill him.
Yeah.
And the Bears took that guy 4th overall, and Wayman Bryan, I think his name was, didn't do anything. But Webby became a great one. He was out of Wisconsin, and his hero, as we talked about in On the Clock, which is available at jimwexell.com. Great new book for your draft. You'll love the 70s part, and it's all kind of new stuff too. But Webster looked up to Jim Otto that came out of Wisconsin, and Jim Otto was his hero. So Joe Tippmann falls in line is what I'm trying to say. Joe Tippmann, the Wisconsin center. I watched tape of him. He did look good last night.
Yeah.
But I like the Minnesota kid, John Michael Schmitz or Schlitz.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Hey, this could be, maybe they find their next center in this year's draft, which would be nice.
And no offense to J.C. Hassenauer, because he's a decent backup center, but
yeah.
You get a Big Ten center, you're doing all right, especially like in the middle of the second round is what I'm thinking. But if you take the Schmitz kid with your first pick of the second round, I like that too.
Yeah.
Now there isn't one person that would complain if they went tackle center, and now all of a sudden they have 7 real linemen
I'd be happy
for your second quarterback.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly.
Yep.
And then the cornerback class is so deep, you can get that could be your 3rd pick.
Right.
And there's, it's not a good defensive line crop, but I will add this. The guy out of Northwestern, I'm going to call him Tommy because I can't pronounce his first name or his last name.
Okay.
It begins with an A. It's real long. I believe his parents are from Nigeria, and his last name begins with an A, is real long, but they call him Tommy. He's out of Kansas City. He went to Northwestern. He's 6'1" and 5/8. Short, 285 pounds. I watched tape of him last night. He is a bully. I watched tape of Keon White. I was disappointed. He looked stiff.
Mm-hmm.
6'1" and 5/8, 285. I mean, where do you play this guy?
Yeah.
Oh, he's like a defensive tackle, defensive end, but he's like Harrison. Really, that kind of freaky short guy that's really strong.
Right.
I really liked him. That's a guy I wouldn't mind. That's another guy you could put in your package at pick 17. 3-4 guys, so you don't have to trade up or down.
Yeah.
If someone takes Peasy, well, we got 2 other guys we really like too.
Tommy
A.
Hey.
Tommy out of Northwestern.
Hey, Tommy.
I talked to Tommy. It was a pretty good interview. I liked him. Yeah.
Awesome, Jim. Well, always great stuff. I'm going to close with this, and I saw this on Twitter. I don't know who put it on here, but the Steelers have 4 picks in the top 80 this year. So definitely some opportunities to really build for the future. So,
if Tomlin doesn't win the Super Bowl with 4 picks out of the top 80, he should be fired, right?
He should be. I mean, it's got to happen. I mean, Kenny Pickett better be the MVP too, or something's wrong in Pittsburgh. There's no discipline. There's no discipline in that locker room. That's what it is.
1 out of every 20. That's not that great. It's okay.
Yeah.
I like 2 out of the first 32.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man. Anyway, thank you so much for watching today, the John Fiala episode. It was a lot of fun. Please make sure you check out Jim's work at the Still City Insider. Give him a follow on Twitter at Jim Wexell. You can check out my work at thestillstudy.com. Give me a follow at Still Study, and we will see you back here next week for episode 58. Jim, have a great week.
Thanks for putting up with my nonsense today, Jeremy. Take care, brother.
That's always a pleasure.
All right, man.
See ya.